This is Kimberly Ries, and you are tuned into the Secret Sauce Marketing Tasting Show, the groundbreaking podcast for business bosses, professional women, and anyone who is hungry to learn how to create the career, business, and life of their dreams by charting their own course. I want to welcome you to another episode of KLA Marketing Secret Sauce Marketing Tastings podcast, where we speak with business leaders and recognized experts in how to grow and sustain a prosperous business. So we're welcoming my good friend Jim Ries of Offit Kurman, and we're going to discuss extreme law firm growth. And I'm interested I'm sure our listeners will also be interested to hear some of Jim's stories, and he is a wonderful person to represent business leadership and innovation. So welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So would you please start by sharing with our listeners a bit about yourself, your professional passion, and a few insights into your professional journey?
Sure. Thank you. So I started my working career working for my family business right out of college, and I worked there for 31 years until we closed about 9 years ago.
What was the business?
Our business, we were importers and distributors of ladies' footwear.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, the business closed 9 years ago after 99 years in business.
Wow.
So we had a nice long run. I was fortunate enough to work with my dad for 31 years, and he worked with his dad for 25 years, and there were a couple of years in between.
That's amazing. That's a tremendous longevity.
Yep. So I got my MBA as an on-the-job training.
Yes.
And it suits me well for where I am now. I worked at a couple of companies after we closed, and in January of 2013, I connected with Offit Kurman, which at that point was a 90-attorney law firm in the Mid-Atlantic with about 4 or 5 offices, and I was hired to help manage the practice groups and the attorneys in some of those practice groups. And it was a wonderful experience for me. I was hired with 2 other career business guys, and between the 3 of us, we managed the entire firm of practice groups and the attorneys in those groups.
Wow. That's no small undertaking. I kudos for that. The phrase "herding cats" comes to mind.
Yeah, I heard that phrase a lot. So back about 2.5 years ago, the firm had grown so quickly that we changed from a practice group management structure to a regional management structure. And when they made that change, they offered me this new position as director of business development. New position for the firm, new position for me. They thought it was a higher and better use for me, and they were exactly right. So kudos to the firm for recognizing that that's really where my value was, more there than in managing the attorneys and the practice groups. So I've been doing it for about 2.5 years, and it's really been wonderful. The firm is now 180 attorneys.
Wow.
In 12 offices, from Tysons, Virginia on the south side to New York City on the north side. So we've really got the Mid-Atlantic covered. And we work with owner-managed businesses, entrepreneurs, and families of wealth. Our clients are typically in what we describe as the middle market, which is a great market to be in. It's what we think is an underserved market. And it's really been fantastic for me to be a part of the firm's growth. Very exciting.
Yeah, I've been, I've been watching you guys, and I've been following the growth. I have tremendous respect for Ted and Howard and Brian and Aaron and you, leading that growth. I wanted to just delve in for a moment. So, how does your role as Director of Business Development differ from the regional management position?
Well, being a regional manager really does not include the role of developing business. The regional managers we have really four regions. We have New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, and then DC, Northern Virginia. And those four regions are managed by regional managers. They're really tasked with managing all things with the attorneys and with admin staff, and everything else that occurs within each office. So each of those regions can be considered a separate business unit, and the regional managers manage those business units. Their job does not include business development. So my job is only business development, and frankly, my task is, and my role is, to bring new clients to the firm. That's really it. So I am completely external facing. I do work with attorneys internally, but I am not tasked with training the attorneys on how to do business development. We actually bring in professional sales trainers and coaches to help our attorneys in that respect.
Gotcha. So let's talk a minute about Offit Kurman's extreme growth. What do you attribute that to? And yeah, I'll ask that question. To what do you attribute it?
That's a great question, and there are several parts of that answer. Number one, as I just alluded to, we represent the middle market, and we think that's a great market to represent. It is a market that has not been given a lot of attention. So that's the first thing. I would say, in addition to that, we have a very entrepreneurial and innovative compensation structure for the attorneys, which provides the attorneys a great opportunity to make more money if they can bring in business. And unlike most law firms, we really reward our rainmakers in a major way. So because of that, we appeal to and we attract rainmakers to join our firm. There's an interesting thing going on with law firms and many professional service firms today, and that is what we call the founder's trap. You've got founders like our founders who are baby boomers, and oftentimes there's not an obvious successor to take over the firm, and those are opportunities for people and either individuals or firms to roll up under our umbrella, because we've got a terrific management structure. We've got all of the overhead well under management. And so our business and our firm is scalable because everything's already in place. Whereas many other firms, especially with baby boomers as founders, are looking for the next leader or leaders, and they may not be apparent. So Offit Kurman is a great opportunity for firms and attorneys to roll up into. Again, we've already got the management structure and the overhead structure in place. And we have found that most attorneys and most law firms are poorly managed, and we've already got that in place. So from a sole practitioner to a whole firm can come roll up under our umbrella, and we've got that management in place, and we can do it better and more efficiently than they could. So attorneys and firms that come with us, they can concentrate on their practice of law, and thereby, by focusing on that, they can make more money.
Sure. That is a phenomenal model. And I mean, I have not heard that ever from any law firm. And we work with hundreds of law firms across the country. Makes sense. It makes business sense. Obviously, you guys have done your homework as far as what the marketplace represents. As you know, typically lawyers are not business managers. I go back to when we worked with Ted and Howard early on when you guys came to Philly. I was very impressed with Ted and his CPA background and a very business mentality and perspective of how this was going to all work for you guys. And clearly it is working.
Well, that's very true. And I tell people all the time, one thing that's very different about our firm, and you just said it, is we are a law firm, but we are run like a business. Right. And our clients and our prospects, they recognize that. And because they recognize that, they want to do business with us, because if we understand our business and we run our firm like a business, then they know that we certainly are going to treat their business the same way. And we are really on top of our game as it relates to best practices. Gotcha. We do some very interesting things, and business owners and prospects, they recognize that.
Fascinating. So a couple of things come to mind. I believe I'm correct in saying, Jim, that you are not an attorney.
That's correct.
And I just say hallelujah, right? Praise Jesus, right? Because what we do in our work, in our coaching and training of lawyers and law firms, is I say that having a JD is actually counterproductive to being a market leader if you cannot adapt the mindset of a business owner. Because in law school, they're trained and it's drilled in them to look upon precedent, which is looking backwards, and you're never going to be a market leader unless you look forward.
That's very true. Very true. And, again, the firm was very innovative many years ago in hiring me and my colleagues to manage the practice groups, and then continued with their innovative thinking by creating this director of business development position for me. I've got the business owner background. I'm a relationship guy. I've got, I can relate to the business owners, and it's just been a natural for me.
So one of the questions that raises in my mind, Jim, is given the fact that you are, I'll just say, a non-lawyer, and I don't mean in any disrespect, because I'm thinking of the rules for professional conduct that prohibits non-lawyers from actually generating business. So how do you guys address that? I'm sure you're in compliance, but how do you creatively address that rule?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, but I think that the rule is that as a non-attorney or non-professional, I can't be compensated for selling legal services, to put it bluntly.
Right.
And I'm not. The firm does not pay me origination like it would pay an attorney.
Gotcha.
I have a different compensation structure, different from the attorneys.
Sure.
That does not include getting compensated for origination.
Gotcha. And another issue that raises in my mind when you spoke about fantastically how you guys already have the management structure in place, and you invite those baby boomer founders and others who want to really just focus on the practice of law to roll into Offit Kurman's already established operation. One thing I know from having practiced in-house for almost 20 years is the lateral integration in turbulence and issues that present itself? How does Offit Kurman successfully address those?
That's a really good point, and for sure, life is not perfect, and we've made our mistakes. They're just like making hiring mistakes. So, integrating a single attorney or a firm of attorneys into our firm requires a matching culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're very, very careful on the front end. We go through many meetings and dinners, and the prospective attorneys or groups of attorneys that are interested in coming to the firm meet with lots of different people in the management group, and a lot of time is spent talking about and analyzing culture,
Mm-hmm.
because if there's not a culture fit, it just doesn't work. And we have learned by mistake. So it's a long vetted out process at the front end, and that creates a much better match on the back end.
What are a couple of lessons that you've learned from going through that process? I mean, I could probably write a book on what I've seen when I was in house, but I'd be curious of of going through that process, and perhaps a match did not work. What were some of the lessons that you brought forward with you?
Well, especially when you talk about founders, baby boomer founders who are used to running their own firm, maybe making deals on handshake agreements rather than using engagement letters and things of that nature. It's a bit of a culture shock for attorneys like that. And Offit Kurman does not have a lot of rules and policies, but the ones that we have, we're not really willing to budge on, because it's just part of the way we do business, and it's part of what we consider best practices, and we're not willing to back down. So whether it's the type of engagement letter we use, or whether it's checking conflicts with new clients, we have our own policies and procedures, and we are not willing to budge. So on occasion, that has been somewhat of a challenge for a sole practitioner that's been practicing for 30 or 40 years, who comes to our firm.
Sure.
So yeah, we've gotten past that, but again, like any good business, you learn by your mistakes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes those can be the best lessons. Those that are the hardest to come to terms with.
Absolutely. Yep. If you're not making mistakes, then you're not learning.
Absolutely. So, Jim, tell us and our listeners, from your unique point of view, how does the firm effectively lead lawyers to prosperity via the strategic business development process?
Well, it does depend on the individual. Um, Everybody has, their own way of approaching the market. Personally, what we have found that works at the firm, and I know it works for me, is what I call the ABCs of business development. So the A is to attract interest within the market. So when you're talking to business owners and referral partners, attract their interest in Offit Kurman. The B is to build on that. So once you attract some interest, you build on it by meeting people for one-on-one meetings, for coffee, for lunch, for dinner, inviting them to firm events, inviting them to educational workshops, things of that nature. And then the C is to close. And you really can't sell legal services. You have to. What my approach is to educate people and business owners and referral sources on why Offit Kurman is different and why we're strong in our own marketplace. And then when a business owner has a need, we've planted seeds, and we hope we get a phone call and can engage.
Gotcha.
So that's the way we do it, and we call it the ABCs of business development.
Absolutely. So I'm just curious, you're out and about, you're very outward focused. So share with us, if you would, what do you see in the marketplace as some of the law firm leaders' greatest challenges, or at the same time, business owner leaders' challenges?
I'm sorry, Kimberly, I missed the last question.
So I just wanted you to share with our listeners, since you're out in the marketplace and you're so outward facing, what do you see as a typical, as some of the typical business owners' greatest challenges?
That's a great question, and I get that all the time, and there are several. This past year, I had about 6 clients that had matters related to partnership agreements. One was a 3-person partnership where 2 of the partners were active in the business. The third partner was an outside investor, and the 2 partners who were active in the business wanted to relieve the third partner of his partnership. And so we had one was like that. I had one where it was 2 brothers. One felt like he was doing all the work, the other one wasn't. So we needed to exit the one partner who was not doing the work. And then there was the third I can remember is 2 partners. One was ill and was still, an equal partner, but was really sort of dragging down the partnership and the business because he wasn't able to work and he didn't want to give up his partnership. So we worked something out there to exit him. A lot of that, and certainly those transactions have more to do with the baby boomer generations than anything else, I would say. The other one of the other areas that is seems to be low-hanging fruit, for lack of a better term, is employment issues. I think I know as a prior business owner, what gave me the greatest headaches were people-related, employment-related issues. So, you've got a disgruntled employee that you've recently fired, and maybe they sue the company. We have issues like that all the time with with our clients, our business owners. So again, employment issues are pretty much low-hanging fruit. They happen fairly often. And then thirdly, I would say in our market, we have a lot of contractors as clients, and we are constantly getting asked to take a look at their contracts with their third-party vendors and tighten up the contracts so that they get paid on time and to reduce their exposure if something were to happen. So those are 3 of the areas that I would consider low-hanging fruit.
Changing marketplaces. So I just want to speak for a few moments, Jim, about, we've worked together in the past. You're a very affable, approachable fella. But when you're out in the marketplace now as Director of Business Development, does that include from Tyson's Corner to New York City?
It does, but as you might suspect, I really spend most of my time in the region that I call Central Maryland, because that's where the concentration of my network lives. Mm-hmm. So I could go up to New York and Philadelphia and down to Tyson's, but it doesn't make that much sense because I would primarily be establishing new relationships in those areas. However, I do have where I do have relationships in New York, Philadelphia, Tyson's, etc. I'm leveraging those relationships all the time and meeting more people in those regions. It's just that I can't spend a lot of time there because most of my, again, the concentration of my network is in what I call Central Maryland.
So that's very interesting because I mean, I'm assuming that you sleep at least a few hours a night, right?
Yeah, a few, right.
So share with us, because this is always a recurring topic. It never seems to go out of style on the qualities of effective networking. So clearly you've been very successful at it. You've grown an expansive network. So I would love for you to share a few steps that you follow as a practice to attract new relationships, cultivate, nurture, and leverage those for the benefit of Offit Kurman.
Right. Thank you. So I try to get meetings and get in front of two different groups of people. One is, I would say, centers of influence, referral partners, people who can introduce me to business owners.
Mm-hmm.
And the other group, obviously, are business owners themselves. So all of my networking activities are strategically based on meeting those two groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm concentrating now. One of my strategies for 2019 is to create more one-on-one meetings with business owners than with the referral partners, and that's a bit of a flip-flop compared to my first couple of years with this role.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can do this in several ways. I think I try to be very strategic in choosing the types of networking groups that I join and in choosing the types of networking events to attend. For example, I attend many networking events for breakfast and for dinner. I try to concentrate on the events that are going to draw business owners. So they could be, a themed event like the fastest growing companies in a certain area or the most admired CEOs in a certain area. And I try to attend those events because anytime CEOs are receiving an award, there's a really good chance that the actual CEO of the company is going to be there.
Right.
And there's a good chance that you might be sitting with them at a table or grabbing a drink with them during the networking time. So those are good events to attend because there's a good chance that business owners will be there. The networking groups that I'm a part of, I'm generally surrounded by like-minded people who are high-level business development professionals or high-level salespeople, successful salespeople who understand the how the referral partnership world works and the give to get philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
So those are people that can be my cheerleaders, my evangelists, and I can be the same for them. So that's how I approach both the business owner audience and the referral partner audience.
Well, it sounds like just one big party of fun, Jim. Can I come with you?
Yeah, it can be exhausting. We try to pick the right events, and I do try to stay home on occasion, but I have this terrible hate to miss thing going on with me, and you just never know where you're going to find that next client.
Right.
It might be at an event that you think is going to be awful, but you just happen to rub elbows with the right person, and that person needs your services now or in a week or in a month, and it's perfect timing. So I do believe that our success is based on timing and being in the right place at the right time. And if you take that to the next step, and if you put yourself at a lot of places, a lot of time, then you increase the probability of success.
Absolutely. And it is it is adapting that we call the give to get, the either the marketing mindset or adapting that service attitude. And too few, in my view, too few, not even lawyers, but business people have that. They don't really understand the purpose and objective of targeted networking. It's not about us. It's about the people that are there that you want to meet, that, that how can you help them? How can I be of service to you? And it no longer surprises me or amuses me. It's just sad to me that somewhere along the line, established business people have not gotten educated on the real treasure trove of how targeted networking can help build a business, but not if it's all about me.
Correct. And the phrase I use, it's not my phrase, but you need to be interested,
Yeah.
not interesting.
Right.
Because if you're interesting, you're talking too much.
Right.
If you're interested, you're listening.
Right. And you never learn too much if you're talking.
That's right. You got it.
So I want to be mindful of our time. I have two last questions. These are fun softball questions. So I'm always fascinated to learn about people, their paths to where they are today, and all the lessons that they've learned along the way, because that's the greatest experience, I think, in life, is when we can look in that rearview mirror and see what we once were, and now that we know better, that we do better in all aspects of our life. So Jim, I'm curious if you could give your younger self one piece of professional advice, what would that be?
Oh, geez. One piece of professional advice would probably be, just be kind and be comfortable meeting with people, and be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Try to be helpful. People like that. People want to, people have challenges. They want help. Give them help and be kind about it, and be giving of your time, and be authentic. Don't ever try to be something that you're not.
Exactly. That question is, and should be fun for you. Give me a couple little highlights about your two wonderful grandsons.
That's really what life is all about for me now, and it's been a real game changer. I have two grandsons from one from each of my daughters, and they're first cousins, and they're 7 weeks apart. And the beautiful thing is that they each live 10 minutes away. So we see them on a regular basis, at least every weekend, and sometimes during the week. My kids are busy, and the babies are busy, and they go to sleep early, but at least on the weekends. And we oftentimes have one of them for a night or multiple nights, because my kids do travel. And
So how old are they?
they're one just turned 2, and the other one turns 2 in about 6 weeks.
Wowee, that is so exciting. So do they call you?
They call me Pop, and that's what we call my father. So I figured we may as well keep it in the family. And something I would add that's really interesting, that the listeners might find interesting also. In today's world, we're all work very hard, and a lot of what we do is just about business. But people want to relate to you if they're doing business with you.
Right.
And I already mentioned that it's important to be authentic. It's also important to be human and to show vulnerabilities, because that's part of being human.
Right.
And I do share photos of my grandsons on Facebook which I think is the right platform for that. But I can't tell you how often I see people in a business setting and they say, "Oh, I love seeing those photos of your grandsons on Facebook." And it just makes that human connection. It's really, really important as a part of business to establish a human personal connection.
I couldn't agree more. We all need a little bit of more smiles and levity in our workday, right?
We sure do.
So with that in mind, Jim, how can our readers best connect with you?
I will give you my email and my cell number because I do believe make it easy for people to find you. My email is jries, that's letter J, RIES, at offitkurman.com. And my phone number is 410-733-6133. Also, I am very active on LinkedIn. I'd be glad to link in with people. So you can find me on LinkedIn, and lots of interesting posts and comments and photos that I share on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. Well, Jim, I just want to thank you for taking the time to join us this morning for another episode of Secret Sauce Marketing Tastings. We love to connect with folks like you. I couldn't be more thrilled that you're having fun in your relatively new role and all the prosperity and success that Offit Kurman is having. You guys are certainly doing it right, and you're a model for those around you. And we need more models like you folks.
Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you for everything that you do in our oftentimes misunderstood world of business development.
Yeah. Well, listen, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you, listeners, for joining us today. You can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple, all your top major podcasts platforms, and you can even visit klamarketing.com to learn more about how we help lawyers and professional services professionals build and grow a sustainable and prosperous business. So thank you so much, Jim, and hope you have a happy holiday with your family.
Thank you, and same to you and all the listeners. Have a
Thank you so
wonderful
much.
week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.